Hello, and welcome to Leave a Light On podcast, a show that looks to tackle the everyday struggles in our everyday lives. It's time to shed some light on it. Leave a Light On podcast is not a licensed mental health service and shouldn't be substituted for professional advice or treatment. Things discussed in this podcast are general in nature and may be of a sensitive nature. If you're struggling, please seek professional help or contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Here's your hosts, Shane and Chev.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Leave a Light On podcast with one of your hosts, Chev. And alongside me today is Shane-O. How you feeling, buddy?
Feeling good, Chev. Thank you very much. Also like to point out, I'm alongside you every episode.
I know. I've got to stop saying that. You know, I'm going to have to start thinking of some new material.
New material, mate. That's all. That's a good one.
I'm going to have to start downloading some new podcasts.
That's awesome. Your intro.
Hey, really excited about this episode today.
Yes, really excited, as we are on every episode.
We are. I'm excited to have this guest on. I know I said to you I was going to throw something different at you.
Yeah, where was the curveball?
The curveball's gone. It's left the building.
That was a straight knuckleball, that one.
It was. The team has relocated.
Straight down the middle.
No, but seriously, this is really up my alley, this episode.
Yeah, it's the one time I'll probably agree with you. It probably is right up your alley. And
it's good.
And I'm really excited about today's episode, as I am always. But I think today is the start of something new, actually, for Leave a Light On podcast.
Which I'm super keen for.
Yeah.
Some of the work that you've put in for this little segment is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. And I think the listeners are not only going to be really excited about, obviously, this episode, but then also I think there's a lot more scope for what comes in the future. So
yeah, it's a rabbit hole of stuff.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole of stuff. And that just opens up, obviously, where we're going with today. And so without kind of maybe beating around the bush too much, I'd like to obviously say that today is the start of a new segment for Leave a Light On podcast, Chev.
Yeah, 100% it is.
Yeah, and it's a great one. So it's a new segment that we're going to start, and it's one of many that we're going to do. And so without further ado,
do you want to...
No, we're not going to introduce the guest.
Oh, okay,
because
right.
we're going to first...
do the thing.
Yeah. We've got, like I said, it's something really exciting, Chev.
Fair enough.
Yeah, really exciting. So we've actually, because it's a new segment, this new segment has actually got its own little theme song within, obviously, the Leave a Light On segment. So without further ado, this is the first episode.
Hit that.
With the segment of Mindful Moments with Mel. Get into it, Chev. Let's go.
This is awesome.
It's time to align, let your mind be free. Ooh, yeah. It's Mindful Moments with Mel. Come groove with me. She's a psychologist, got the knowledge deep. Breathe in, breathe out, let your worries take a leap. Mindful Moments, ooh yeah, with Mel. Feeling so good, got a story to tell. Gonna guide your mind, help your soul as well. Mindful Moments with Mel. In the groove we dwell. Relax, refresh, reset your inner vibe. Dr. Mel's here to help, let's enjoy the ride. With a funky beat to lift you high. Mindful Moments with Mel, sound waves don't lie. Mindful Moments, ooh yeah, with Mel. Feeling so good, got a story to tell. Gonna guide your mind, help your soul as well. Mindful Moments with Mel. In the groove we dwell.
Awesome.
So without further ado, welcome Mel to the Leave a Light On podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. We're really excited, as you've obviously said, and you would have heard. You couldn't stop smiling the whole way through that as well.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Congratulations on the little jingle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you.
You're actually the first person we've had on that's got their own little jingle
I
as
feel
well.
really special.
Yeah. So, but like I said, it's the first one that we're doing where there's going to be more than just the one episode. So we're really excited, and we want to say, first of all, start off by saying thank you so much for obviously, I want to say, partnering with us in this journey that we're doing when it comes to, the field of mental health. And obviously we'll get a bit more into that with your qualifications next. But from our side, I know Chev and I are really excited, and I want to say thank you so much because this is something that when we started, we said we wanted to do, is get someone like you that is going to come on for not just one episode, but is going to be something that's going to be consistently coming on, because there is so much that we can do in this. So thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Really appreciate having you on here is awesome, because it is a rabbit hole of stuff that we could be going through with you on each different episode we do together.
Yeah.
So, and shedding a light on all the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
no,
It's
this is awesome.
great. I'm really happy to be here and share, the passion around mental health and
Yep.
speak about the important things. So it should be great.
It's going to be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really excited. So obviously, let's start off with the obvious. Tell us who you are, Mel. Tell the listeners who you are, and let's talk about who is Mel.
Okay. Well, there's many layers to that. But I am a psychologist. I'm a registered psychologist. And I've been in the mental health space for about 7 years now. And within that, I've really taken, an interest in the diagnostic space of psychology, but I also do ongoing therapy as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And obviously, you in the space that you're talking about, you've now started your own business, which is called Telethrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about Telethrive and what that entails.
Yeah, so Telethrive is it's a multidisciplinary company, and we offer online services and in-clinic services for not only psychology but speech pathology, dietetics, some occupational therapy and counselling as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Awesome.
cool.
You
Yeah.
cover it all, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It must be it's fascinating to be a psychologist because, like, I sometimes think, what the heck is going on in my brain? But you actually know what is going on in your brain when you're thinking that. So it's quite fascinating.
We're not mind readers.
I was just going to say, does that do your head in though? Like, I know that, like, when you sit down with someone and you like talk to them about their problems, do you take that stuff away with you when you leave work? Like, does that get in your head?
No.
No, yeah, okay.
Some people can. I think if there's a psychologist who's going through something and you
Yeah.
have a client who has a similar experience, that
Yeah.
might be very difficult.
Yeah, okay.
But no, for the most part, I really took on when people come to you for therapy,
Yep.
you really see them as being a good person. They've come and they're like, I've got issues. I need to work through those, and they're really wanting to work on themselves. And you kind of approach that with such a love for those people because you're like, wow, I really want to help this person. And so I tend to walk away from it going, okay, did I help that person? And if I did, that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the lovely thing, like you say, is like for us, we're also trying to kind of change the stigmatism on therapy. Like you're saying, like you're looking at it as such a positive space. And that's what we're trying to say is that it's so helpful. Whereas a lot of people have had this image of therapy, like you only go to therapy when you're like down in the dumps. Like when you're battling, the people that are going to, they're weak, they need the help, they can't do it on their own. And so there's a stigmatism that if you're going to therapy, like you're a weak person. And we're like, no, you wanting to get better. To me, that's showing strength.
Yeah. So if it actually takes, you can talk to anyone and they'll always be going through something and they won't say it to you. And if you think about how much they struggle to tell their friends, imagine the courage it takes to come and tell a stranger what's going on with you to get help.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, eh? But yeah, beautiful space that you're working in, and obviously something that we're really passionate about, and the fact that your message and your industry is probably at the forefront of pioneering this new generation that's coming through, because it is such a battle when it comes to the psychology side of things. When we look at kids nowadays, there's so many things from like ADHD, and I use ADHD because that's actually going to be the main focus for today.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. So ADHD, there's other things like bulimia, which is they're all, even though there might be external factors like addiction and those kind of things, they're all start in your head. So it's all starting in the mental side of things. And so for us, we were saying a psychologist is literally like at the forefront of battling these kind of things. So you really hold such an important space, and we want to highlight that. We want to highlight the incredible work that you do and the amazing kind of aspects and little intricacies that you have to do in order to help someone.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Well, thank you, because it's an important role. It definitely is, but we couldn't do what we do without the support of everyone else as well. Because coming to see someone once a week, once a fortnight, whatever however long you come and see them, that's great. But if you're not able to access support outside of that, when clients are with me, they have breakthroughs, but then they've got the rest of the week or the rest of the fortnight that they've got to continue to do that. And if they've got support, these podcasts, our counsellors, the schools, all the people who are doing things to enhance mental health are only helping us.
Which is awesome to be a part of it, because that was mine and Shade's original plan, was to, spread the word and get our podcast out there to let people know that it's all right. You know what I mean? So that was our original plan,
It's just like you say, it's I like to look at it as like a utility belt.
Yeah.
So, you're one kind of little notch on that utility belt, and people just need to keep adding, because the more you add, the more weapons you have to fight this.
Yeah.
And so
very well put.
thank you.
I like that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
When we talk about that, that's like
Jeez.
Sorry. Yeah, I gotta pump myself up a bit.
He won't be able to fit out the door. Don't you? That's awesome.
Yeah, we call that protective factors.
Yeah.
Things
cool.
that protect a person from declining in their mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's amazing. So very important space. So let's kind of dive into today's episodes a little bit, because obviously, like I said, this is going to be an ongoing thing for us. And obviously we're excited to introduce the world to Mindful Moments, which is going to be your
Mindful Moments with Mel.
Mindful Moments with Mel. So that's your little segment in the Leave a Light On podcast, which you're super stoked with in your head.
Loves it.
I am smiling.
Yeah. Basically, the reason why we came up with that, and obviously like we discussed, was that you obviously deal with the mind. And so obviously kind of pointing out the obvious there.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with the mind. But in that, obviously these mindful moments of creating a space where we can think and create positive awareness into these spaces that need to change in order for us to get better. And so we're creating one moment where we're focusing on building healthy minds. And so we're having these mindful moments with Mel. And so thank you for building the segment with us, because today is one specifically that we're going to kind of touch on. And let me just start off by saying this as well. I know we say this with all our guests, but Mel, obviously you are a medical professional in this industry. At the same time, every situation is different. So you're going to talk on a very broad spectrum of knowledge that you obviously have come to terms with. But we also do encourage people out there who are listening, if some of this resonates with you, please do go seek your own medical professional to either verify or, what's the term I'm looking for?
It's a backup. Backup.
Either verify this or, negate it in essence. So investigate. Yeah. So do your own investigation into it rather than take our word as, because we all know Dr. Google is out there and people tend to take Dr. Google's word for it. And, everyone's got.
I do that when I got the flu.
Yeah.
And the man flu's a real thing too.
Yeah. And then you come to me and think you got cancer or something like that,
No, I don't. I swear to God. But I do think I'm dying.
Yeah. So I want to make that very clear. Like, don't. Obviously, we're going to talk in the medical field here, but I do encourage everyone, if there's anything that resonates with you in this, please do go and seek your own professional help and investigate in your own terms, because everyone can be so different and unique.
Yeah.
So I know you would 100% back me up on that.
Yes, no, absolutely agree. And what people tend to do is they resonate with symptoms and they go, okay, so that must explain me.
Yes.
And they forget about everything else that it could be.
Yes.
So
wonderful.
absolutely.
Oh, damn, I got 5 out of those 6 symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, let's jump into today's one. And we're going to be touching on the topic of ADHD. So give us a kind of broad spectrum of what ADHD is.
Okay. So ADHD is classified as a neurodevelopmental disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is the clinical term. And what that means is that a person is born with whatever they have in their brain. It is lifelong and unchanging. So we can't change it. And people tend to go, oh, can we fix that? You can't fix it. It's who you are.
Yeah.
There are many different types, or there are 2 types specifically. You can have inattentive ADHD. That describes someone who is easily distracted. They tend to lose things. They can't focus and they procrastinate. And then we've got hyperactive, impulsive. Those are just some symptoms.
So it sounds like me, Shane.
Oh, don't worry. I'm looking at you, Chef.
And then we've got hyperactive, impulsive. And this is probably more what everyone sees as ADHD because these are the symptoms that people can see. And, you know, we can't sit still. We're restless. We're moving. We're standing when we should be sitting. And we're walking around. You can have inattentive.
A little of both?
Yeah, you can have. You can have inattentive. You can have hyperactive, impulsive, or you can have what we call a combined diagnosis. And that's when you have symptoms of both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like you said, those three are pretty key. And obviously, I think for you, Chef,
I've got a combination.
You've got combo for sure. But I just want to touch on obviously what you said there when it came to the fact that it's genetic. Does that mean that someone who has ADHD is born with it and there's nothing they can do? It's just that's the roll of the cards and unfortunately you dealt with it.
Yeah, I think, yes, like you can't change it. But I don't think it's necessarily an unfortunate thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of things, a lot of good things that can come from having ADHD once you have an awareness that that's what you have. You can really utilise some of the things. Shabby's here laughing at me.
I'm really taking it all in. I really am.
Yeah.
So this is good stuff to know.
But with your diagnosis, there's an acceptance that you can have as well. But you are born with it. You can't change it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the key thing that you said there is identifying that you have it, accepting it, and then realizing that life can still go on with it.
Yeah.
It's 100% okay. It's not like it's like a terminal illness that's going to destroy you.
No.
And there's ways to manage it, which we'll get into later, obviously, as well. But obviously, this is something that the stat that came out was that it said around 1 in every 20 Australians has ADHD. That's a massive kind of stat if you think about it. It also talks about it's more common in boys. And I love how you just crinkled your nose because I know exactly where you're going to go with this. And the reason they say that is because it's underdiagnosed in girls. So it's not to say that girls don't have it. It's just to say that it's underdiagnosed in girls. Tell us a little bit more about the stat and why you think that with girls it's more underdiagnosed than boys.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So, yes, it's more commonly diagnosed in males because females tend to mask. They've done some studies. This isn't just me talking about my experience. They have done studies that have shown that males tend to not mask as much as females. They tend to accept that that's who they are and kind of run with it a little bit more than females, whereas females tend to internalize their symptoms and stop themselves from, say, having the restlessness and the hyperactive behaviours in schools, universities, in their workplace.
Yep.
And so people don't go, oh, you might have ADHD. So we tend to not see it in females until they have an awareness themselves, and then they're coming and seeing us as adults. And they have a lot of grief around the loss of what they could have had in childhood had they been diagnosed earlier in life.
Yeah, so there's a lot more than to deal with and kind of unpack. Obviously now, when they've finally taken the step to come and get help, than if they had just come earlier and then realised that it was just ADHD, that was something they could have just lived with as normal and just managed as they're gone. It's very interesting in that aspect. And I think one of the, like you say, with the whole masking things, this is probably your opinion more than it is obviously factual or medical. Do you feel that that's generally because with women, obviously they're a lot more emotional, so they think with their emotions, they feel things more, so the embarrassment side of things is a lot more prevalent. Whereas with guys, it's like, oh, I can't change it, so I'm just going to kind of get on with life and move on. And the reason why I say that is because if guys have disagreements, for instance, let's just say Chev and I have a disagreement. We have an argument or we'll have a punch up. Once it's over.
I'd just let the listeners know I'd definitely win for that.
All right.
South Africa versus
you gonna-
Australia here.
You're just going to punch my waist, are you?
Cheeky. Absolutely cheeky. Keep going, sorry.
Get your step ladder, don't worry. So if we have a fight, we have a punch up, we have an argument. Once that's finished, that is that chapter closed for us. We move on. We can get the next day, we can be as if nothing ever happened, and we move on. And it's like, we accept it. It's just kind of, that's the norm. Whereas women tend to feel things a lot more, and that's why things like bullying in schools are a lot more prevalent in females, and it lasts longer than it does with boys. Whereas boys is a lot more physical, girls are a lot more emotional bullying.
Yeah.
So
They tend to put up their walls a lot more.
yeah. So yeah, then maybe your opinion on that.
Yeah, so like there is probably a number of answers that I could give you here.
Yeah.
It is a very broad question.
Yeah.
But females tend to internalize more.
Okay.
And when we internalize, we then self-reflect and go, oh, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Or then blame another person, because blaming is easier than accepting. So males, when you say like punch up, like females generally don't get in punch ups. Now this is, again, like I'm speaking very generally.
General, yes.
But yeah, we do tend to take things on more. We notice more when we're different. We tend to be a bit quieter in that. And so internalizing and then I guess painting a picture of ourselves that's not necessarily true, it really affects our sense of self-worth, our self-esteem, and I guess like how we are with other people. So we are more emotional in some aspects. And when I say this, like males can be emotional too.
Oh, yeah. It's a
But-
very general statement. That I don't want to,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what I said.
So, yeah, females, we are more emotional. I don't know that that's why we're not diagnosed as often. I would say it's probably more that we don't want to stand out and be different. Otherwise, we don't feel accepted.
Okay. Do you think that's changing now with kind of the whole movement of like, it's okay to be unique. It's okay to be different.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
I think we've got a long way to go. I think people are getting better at accepting themselves, but I don't know that they're confident enough to be who they truly are in front of others, because there's still a lot of, social expectation on people, and still a lot of negative self-talk that comes with being different.
Yeah.
And how long can you hold on to something that is different and not get the acceptance of others? So if you're not getting accepted, then you go home, you feel bad, and you change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's key.
It's only been in the last few years that I've actually just been starting to speak out about it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one of those subjects with me personally where I've just let it go by the wayside. I haven't announced that I do have it, but it's been in the last 7 years that I've just started going, you know what? I've got it. You know what I mean? Like I've actually started talking about it. Hence the reason why I wanted to do this podcast with you. You know what I mean? Because I know there's other people out there, as Mel said, that do have it that don't speak up. And I wanted to get that awareness out there for this condition.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's only been the last 7 years I've been starting to talk about it. So
And there's a lot of shame around it.
it is, yeah. That, exactly what you said before, Mel, about being different, not being accepted. And that's how I felt going through school.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's fine. I mean, obviously we spoke about ADHD is obviously a genetic disorder that we spoke about that was passed down from birth.
So there's a genetic link.
Okay.
If you have parents who have it, you are more likely, or family members, I should say, you're more likely to have a diagnosis of ADHD.
Okay.
If you don't have parents with ADHD, you can still have it. So
Yes.
there are going to be other factors. There could be environmental factors.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about some of those factors. What are some of the factors that can contribute to potentially the genetic side of things, ADHD?
Do you mean
So, for instance, one of the ones we spoke about before this was maternal smoking during pregnancy.
Yeah.
Sometimes leads to the fact that it could bring early onset ADHD in children.
Yeah.
and
So
a baby.
when you say early onset, it's ADHD, like we said, is you're born with it. It may increase your
Likelihood.
likelihood of having ADHD once born. So smoking, alcohol, low birth weight or premature birth, they all kind of contribute to you having a more likelihood of developing ADHD or then like the genetic factors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's one of those things that I suppose you can delve into so many different areas, and like you said, you could do none of those things and still have it. So when we say that, obviously, if your kid maybe has ADHD, you could have done none of that and still be okay with the fact that it's not your fault. It's not something that you've done.
I find parents tend to blame themselves.
Yes.
Particularly parents if they have ADHD. I've had people come and say, oh, maybe I won't have children because I don't want to pass this on to them. And then children who have been diagnosed and parents have it and they haven't accepted their own diagnosis. That's a hard space to live in. But you can not have parents. You can have parents who don't have ADHD and still have it. So you can't just go, oh yeah, this one thing caused my child to have ADHD.
Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's not just one particular thing, like we say.
It's what you eat as well too.
Well, there's a few things, like obviously some of the things that we spoke about as well when it comes to other environmental factors like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I kind of researched before this, toxins, so chemicals like lead affect brain development. So if you happen to work in a lead pencil factory.
That's probably what's wrong with me. I used to chew on lead pencils.
Yeah. There you go. Obviously, the home environment, if there's a lot of conflict in the home.
Stress.
Which to me is quite an interesting one because I'll get onto that. But then the big one, which I think is quite prevalent, is the early childhood trauma side of things.
Yeah.
Because a child who experiences trauma is more likely to show features consistent with ADHD.
Yeah, that's true. Trauma can look like ADHD. And so it is a difficult space to go, well, is this trauma or is this ADHD? And that's where our assessment process is really important. And we would also be looking at genetic factors as well. And then how long the symptoms have been there for.
Yeah.
If the trauma has happened really early on in life, say in like very early development, it can be very tricky. If we have a 9 or a 10-year-old come in and they're like, oh, those symptoms only happened after the trauma, we may attribute them more to trauma rather than ADHD, but we'd still make sure that we thoroughly investigated to make sure we weren't going, oh, they have trauma so they can't have ADHD because that's not true.
Yeah.
I would say if they have experienced trauma and they do have ADHD, their regulation will be a lot more difficult.
And I think trauma can look so different to certain individuals. It's not necessarily that you have to have this big traumatic life event that's affected you. It could be something so small to me, but to my child, it could be massive.
Yeah.
So it's a very broad kind of range that you need to look at when it comes to trauma, because like we just said, like I could think that something was just so small and just irrelevant, but to my child, they might think it's like their world is falling down.
Yeah. And I mean, children for the most part are very resilient. They can experience traumatic things and they can come back from it quite well. Not always, but when you think about it this way, have you ever heard people usually say this about their pets, but to your child, you're their whole world. Like their parents are everything. They teach them, they're there for them emotionally. They spend their whole day wanting to come home and see them. And adults have so much going on in their lives. They've got work, they've got friends, they've got relationship difficulties. We tend to forget that a child's world is so small and parents are, they're the biggest thing to them. And so when something happens to a child, they're looking to their parents for that, it's going to be okay, I'm going to take care of you emotionally. If we don't recognize how big it is to a child that something in their world has been disrupted, and we continue on the way we always did and don't acknowledge that, that can be extremely traumatic for a child.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I really like the way you put that. It's really profound. Let's look at, obviously we spoke about some of the signs that we can attribute to it. And one of the things I want to kind of maybe touch on, because it's maybe not as studied 5 years ago as it should be now, is technology and how that contributes to obviously onset ADHD and diagnosis, the positive diagnosis in ADHD. Your opinion in terms of technology, the influence it's having in that space, what would you say is kind of the spectrum of technology when it comes to that? Is it positive? Is it negative?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
It can be both. When we've got ADHD, people talk a lot about hyperfocus. We have our special interests and things that we want to pay attention to. So most people with ADHD will go, like I won't focus, but then if I really like it, I can sit there for hours and just do it. So with children,
That's me.
Yeah.
I just want to chuck that in there. That's me. So you put Lego in front of me, Lego. I can sit there for literally days on end, just build Lego.
Yeah.
That's my sort of hyper focus. And when I went through a heap of stuff a few months ago, that's what I did, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Just put my headphones on and just Lego was awesome.
And I will have parents come in to me and say, they say they can't focus and they're distracted, but I can sit them in front of the iPad or sit them in front of Lego and they will build things for hours. So I don't think they have ADHD, but they can still have ADHD because if they're the thing that people are lacking in the brain is, without getting too technical, just feel-good hormones that motivate you to keep on going. So when we're putting Lego together, we're experiencing the dopamine every time we kind of get it right. We fix it. We're happy. The same as when we're playing Minecraft or Roblox, you know, winning those games, it provides the dopamine hit that sometimes can be deficient in neurodevelopmental. So it's hard to say. I don't think it contributes to an ADHD diagnosis, but the way that you use technology is going to be different if there's ADHD present.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just something that you're obviously talking about dopamine there, and that's quite a big one because, in life, I think every human being looks for like these dopamine hits. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know what dopamine is, it's that happy feeling, that happy emotion. It's a thing that when you do something, that warm, fuzzy feeling inside of you that you're just like, I love this. Yeah, it's good. And so, life is all about, chocolate. Yeah, chocolate's a big one.
Mine's candy.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
candy.
But then, sorry to interject here, but that's why we've got binge eating in ADHD. That's good.
Well, that's what addiction is. Addiction's all about finding these like hits of dopamine and trying to get them without actually the effort of, you know, me doing something to get them. I'm kind of just relying on these external factors to give me these dopamine hits.
Yep.
Well, that's a whole nother.
Jumping ahead.
That's a whole nother podcast. But
That's all right.
but dopamine hits, like you're saying, when it comes to kids, is such a hard thing. And I find that with technology, what's happening is they're getting these hits so much easier and more frequent that it becomes very desensitizing to them. So, for instance, they need more. And so they need to game longer in order to get the same dopamine hit, or they need to, play a different game that, is more violent or more, adrenaline filled or whatever the case is in order to get these dopamine hits. And so they're desensitizing themselves that when they come off it, they don't know how to still get these dopamine levels.
Yeah. So I think that speaks to dysregulation that comes. So when we're away from the things that make us feel good, we struggle to regulate. A child can't conceptualize. They don't have cognitive capacity to understand why they're feeling the way that they feel. All they know is that feels good. I like playing it. And why can't I have it? So when it's taken away, particularly when it's taken away without notice, it does cause disrupt and upset.
Sorry. I've got hay fever. I do. My allergies are playing up.
That's
Oh my goodness.
Sorry. I do apologise. Apologise to the listeners.
So, they got to, I guess, like finding other ways to get dopamine can be tricky, particularly when we have, an addiction around gaming or technology, which a child who has ADHD, that is an addictive behaviour. It is an addiction, and you can have gaming addiction or technology addiction as a child, and you are more likely to have that if you have ADHD, in the same way that you are more likely to be addicted to drugs and alcohol in adulthood, and same as binge eating as well. That's a form of like
that dopamine hit.
Gambling as well.
Yep.
Gambling,
any addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, any addiction. Yeah, it's great.
I've heard of that, you know what I mean, like gambling.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Just
ask any
put the
addict.
whole
That's why they
paycheck
did
through.
it.
Yeah.
That's any addict. If you ask them, obviously they're like, "Why did you do it?" It was like, "Well, I needed a high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just need to
right.
get that." Very interesting kind of concept that I was listening to a podcast. You and I were chatting about this. Was that they referred to this like dopamine pool that we kind of have. If we look at it in the fact that we have a pool of dopamine, and every time we have these dopamine like highs, it's like we're throwing like a rock in this pool to create this dopamine high. But then what happens is when the bigger the rock we throw in, the higher the hit is. But what happens is that water tends to the dopamine tends to kind of trickle out the pool.
Yeah.
So every time it settles, there's less in the pool. So next time, in order to get the same hit, you've got to throw an even bigger rock in.
Yeah.
And then more dopamine goes out the pool.
And that's a really good explanation of addiction as
that
well.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually full on. That was awesome because I actually understood that.
Yeah.
I did.
So when we have these addictive behaviours, we have a little bit and it feels good, and we recover quickly when we're removed from the hit. And then slowly over time, the hit will increase of whatever it is that we need, whether that's like sitting at a poker machine or taking a drug or having a drink. And the recovery or the time that we can have between getting a hit of dopamine will shorten. So we recover less, and then we need more, and then we need more soon after we've already had one. And then that's when it becomes a problem, because then we find we can't live without it.
Yeah, right. So it's just like doing drugs.
Yeah.
You just keep needing that feed.
Well, I think, one of the things
crazy.
that obviously I think we've progressed a little bit to kind of the adult side of it now is to say that, if you have undiagnosed ADHD as an adult and you're sitting there going, you can't control your impulses, you battle to pay attention. And so you start to get stressed because you're like, well, I don't know why I can't do this. So you start to deal with these stress levels. So you start to look for ways to deal with the stress levels. So it's not just for the dopamine hit of saying I'm going to get happy and high, but it's also a way of me saying, well, I can forget and I can cope with the way that I don't need to worry about. I don't need to worry about the fact that now, I have these struggles that I'm struggling with in everyday life. So a lot of people tend to use these external factors as coping mechanisms for something even just as small as ADHD. And I say as small because if you kind of look at ADHD, it's very manageable.
Yeah.
It's very manageable. But whereas when we start to look for these external mechanisms that start to build these dopamine hits and ways of coping, and it gets to a real dangerous place, to now look at it and go, I need help. The workload you have to do in order to then come down off that is going to be humongous compared to where if we just went, I have ADHD. How do I manage ADHD?
Yeah, well, we're not just looking at an ADHD. We're then looking at the shame that comes with, identifying a behaviour that we're not proud of, the negative self-talk or self-view that we've formed of ourselves, and questions around why do I need this? Why can't I cope? Why can the person next to me do it and not me? We're not just dealing with ADHD, we're dealing with mental health.
Absolutely. I mean, it's it's a huge, like you say, when you start to pick this field of mental health apart, and they all link somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, you can't just say like, okay, we're going to focus on ADHD and ADHD is going to be its own separate thing. It's always going to be linked to some other form of mental struggle, whether it be addiction, whether it be, whatever it is, psychotic behavior or neurodevelopment kind of side of things or whatever it is. But there's always going to be some link in some way.
If you have ADHD, you are more likely to develop what we call comorbid diagnoses, which sounds horrible, but it just means coexisting. If you have depression and anxiety and ADHD, your ADHD will make depression and anxiety symptoms worse, and your depression and anxiety will make your ADHD symptoms worse. So you can't win.
So one monster feeds the other monster.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really hard to cope when you're experiencing all of that at once.
Okay, so let's.
You looked straight at me. Yeah, that's me. That's me, Mel.
Not intentionally.
No, that's all right. No, that's all right, because 100%, and that actually makes a lot of sense to me when you said, well, especially Shane said that one beast feeds the other. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you think about your mind, Chevy, right now, or you don't have to do it too deeply, but or if anyone who's listening has ADHD,
Yeah, sure.
a common thing that people will say to me is that their mind just doesn't switch off.
Nope.
It is go, 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 go constantly, even at night time, which is why a lot of people struggle to sleep. Now imagine you're not just thinking about, what am I going to do, or what didn't I do today, or am I hungry? I don't know. Like, you've got all these like really benign thoughts.
Just every day kind of,
Yeah, but imagine then you've got anxiety. And so instead of thinking of that, you're thinking, what did that person think of me today? Did I say the wrong thing? Oh, I didn't do this today. Am I going to get in trouble at work?
Yeah.
Instead of thinking of all of the mundane things and just having a fun time with our brain, we're thinking about all the things that we're worried about. And then you spend all night worrying, all day worrying. And then we go, wow, like I just want to switch my brain off. And then we go, oh, I feel horrible.
Often, often, like you say, it's the mental side of thing often affects the physical as well.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when you start to worry about these things like anxiety and that kind of thing, you can't switch off your brain. You get tired, fatigue sets in. Physically, you start to struggle health-wise as well.
Well, it's funny you say that. Not funny, actually. It's just interesting you say that because when we experience depression, for example, our brain actually slows down and it tells our body to slow down. And so people will come and say, I think I've got ADHD, and they might actually just be depressed because there's this thing called executive functioning. And when we're depressed, we kind of lose motivation. So when we feel depressed, our brain will slow down and it will say, hey, body, like slow down. No motivation. We lose the energy that we once had. In order to get that motivation back, if you move your body, go to the gym, exercise, you'll actually be like, hey, brain, time to speed up.
Yeah. Oh,
and that can help your mental health. So it is all connected because the things that are happening in our brain are telling our body what to do. The same when we have anxiety, you're in that flight or fight mode.
Yeah.
It's like maybe there's not actually danger here. There's not a lion in this room right now, but maybe we're really anxious about the people in the room and what they're thinking about us. And our brain's going, there's danger. And it doesn't matter if there's danger there or not. If we perceive danger, it's telling our body to react. So our heart is increasing, we're sweating, we're feeling upset. That's our brain. And so if you can calm your body down, it will tell your brain, hey, there's no danger here. And those are the things you learn in therapy is like, how do I calm my body down to tell my brain that I'm okay in this moment and I'm not threatened?
Yeah.
This is really good stuff to know.
Yeah, wow.
Especially for the people listening that do have these symptoms, So good few little tips.
Yeah, I mean, it's really knowledgeable to me to hear these kind of things because I feel, I just kind of feel that people sometimes can be very hard on themselves.
Yeah.
They, like you say, especially with the anxiety side of things, like people, when they worry about something, like let's just use the example that you thought of, like what did I say the right thing? Like you can be very hard on yourself in that space and so that judgment lasts longer, the anxiety lasts longer. Whereas if we were just kinder to ourselves and being like, so what? Who cares? I might have said the wrong thing, but at the same time, like, people who know me would understand at my heart and where I'm at. And, I got to be gracious because everyone makes mistakes and so what? Yeah. Because ultimately those people who have those kind of conditions, they feel that for other people so much more. So they'll be very gracious towards other people. Yeah. Like when someone else, oh no, you're doing well. Like you did so well, like so good. But it's so much harder for them to show to themselves.
Yeah. And so what you're describing is like the ability to self-reflect, accept and be kind to ourselves. We are our own harshest critic. But putting things into perspective for people, like, okay, you said you all you can think about is that you said something silly or said something that might have embarrassed you. Think of the last time you heard someone say something embarrassing. How long did you think about that for? How long did you go, oh, that person said that thing?
Yeah.
And when's the last time you thought about it?
Oh, I can't tell you when. Yeah.
So then what do you think other people thought about the thing that you said and how long did they think about it?
That's really, really good because I'm thinking about what you're saying and that's 100%, isn't it? It goes out of your mind like that. You don't even think about that.
People don't care.
Yeah,
They don't care that much.
People have got their own issues.
Yeah.
Like you say, we've all got these things we're struggling with and
That's
people
so
are like,
good. Very well explained. That's awesome. Seriously. So I'm being serious. That's awesome explained.
Thank you.
It's awesome. So
that's why she does what she does, shit.
yeah, but it's good. It's good because I'm picking up this and I'm
Handful moments.
So I'm silly. So it's good.
Let's kind of bring it a little bit more.
We've digressed.
Yeah, you've kind of gone on a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but that's fine.
It's what we do.
Yeah, let's bring it more back towards ADHD and let's focus on on the adulthood side of things.
Yep.
How would you suggest, because obviously I think it's a lot harder the older you get to kind of now come forward and say, I've got these kind of struggles that I'm dealing with, or even kind of acknowledging it because you've lived with it for so long, you just think it's normal.
Yeah.
What would you kind of say to someone who potentially is showing some of these signs? What would you suggest approaching that kind of subject or topic matter would be?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing, which is easier said than done, is to be kind to yourself. If you're recognizing that you might have symptoms of ADHD, there's nothing you could have done about it. If you had the support or the knowledge, I often have people go, oh, well, how did my parents not know? Our parents didn't have the access to the information that we have. They didn't know about the difference between inattentive and hyperactive impulsive ADHD, and we couldn't just look it up on Google. So there's a lot of I keep saying shame that comes with I should have done this sooner. And what I like to talk about a lot, particularly with people who have ADHD, is your capacity. So people are inherently good, and I truly believe that. And we give what we can. And people go, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done this in the past, or I wish I'd done that. But if you had the capacity to do that in the past, you would have done it. You didn't have the capacity, but maybe you've got it now. And if you've got the capacity now, that's great. But you can't look back and go, I could have done that back then, because you would have.
It's very interesting you say that, actually, because I kind of always had this sense that, things happen at specific times in our lives for a reason, and you talk about capacity. So even though, for instance, you might have known about this earlier, let's just say 14-year-old boy, I wasn't paying attention, I struggled, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have the capacity. I just thought I was being naughty, and so I just carried on. And maybe it wasn't the right time for me to do it then, because in that moment I would have, okay, let's use a different example. Glasses.
Yeah.
For seeing. I'm going to use a personal kind of example about this. I knew when I was in high school that I needed glasses. I went to an optometrist. They gave me glasses. Here we go. Use these for reading. You'll feel better. You won't get headaches. You'll be fine. Put glasses on. Felt embarrassed. So what did I do? took the glasses, put them in a drawer, didn't wear them again. Okay. Struggled for another 10, 15 years before I realized I need to go to an optometrist and get my eyes checked. Went back, got the exact same glasses that I got when I was 16. And now do not take them off. Love them. I'm like, this is the best thing. I should have done this sooner.
Well, you do look nice with glasses.
Thank
Yeah, you do.
Thank you. Wrong season. Didn't have the capacity when I was younger to deal with it. Maybe it was the stigmatism behind glasses that I was just like, but what I'm saying is I didn't know what I knew back then, what I know now in terms of the benefits of it.
Exactly.
It was the wrong season.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah. You don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're referring to when you're saying like the capacity is like sometimes, even though you know it's the right thing to do, I knew it was the right thing that I should be wearing the glasses. I didn't have the capacity to be like, to deal with, number one, the stigmatism behind wearing them because it's not cool. People were going to mock me. People were going to call me names. Yeah. And so I didn't have that capacity to deal with it. Whereas now I'm like,
everyone wears glasses.
Good one, bro.
Yeah. And that's a really good example. So you didn't probably even develop your own sense of self by that age either. You were still developing independence, trying to find out who you were, and that didn't fit with someone who was wearing glasses. And your opinion around your glasses have changed, and probably the opinion of yourself because you've got more confidence. So, yeah, like you didn't have the capacity then, but you've got it now.
Yeah.
And you can also do it as simple as being able to regulate. So say you're in a relationship and you have a fight with your partner and you yell and you're like, oh, I wish I didn't yell. And you've had conversations with your partner about why you shouldn't yell and that you're going to try better. If you are emotionally upset and you don't have the ability to not yell, while it's not an excuse, if you can then look back on it and go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, but then recognize I didn't have the capacity to not yell in that moment like I wish I had now, it will help you accept that while it wasn't great, if I had the capacity to not yell, if I truly had that capacity, I wouldn't do it because we are inherently good. No child wants to misbehave. No child wants to disappoint people. They don't have the capacity to do that. So being kind to yourself and kind to others who don't have that capacity is really important when it comes to going, okay, well, what are my symptoms and what I'm dealing with and why haven't I addressed it sooner?
I think just, what you're saying there for me is just like there's such a big important kind of spectrum in the fact that there should be a lot more value on kindness in the world.
Yeah.
Kindness not only towards other people, but kindness towards ourselves. I think when people realize that they can portray kindness to themselves more than they portray to other people, what will happen is the internal will immediately reflect the external. So, because what happens is when we start to externally portray these things and it doesn't reflect the internal, the value is less in that. And we hold less value in that. So if I am saying that I, like, for instance, I use Chev as an example because everyone obviously understands Chev with ADHD, with your story, with ADHD. I'm saying is like, I can get frustrated at Chev for not listening to me when I say something. But I know.
Same with you and the rest of the world.
Yeah, but what I know is I don't listen every time either.
Yeah.
And my wife can say something to me and I can forget it or I can be distracted at the same time. And if I'm expecting her to show kindness to me, I need to then do the same to Chev because I need to be kind on myself and be like, okay, I didn't listen to my wife. Sucks. I can do better. Better luck next time, bud. Let's go.
Yeah.
Same with Chev. It makes it easier for me than to be like, you know what, Chev? I don't appreciate you not listening to me, but at the same time, I understand.
No, I'm joking.
I understand, and I love you enough to be like, let's just move on and be like, do better in the future, bud.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say is like, people need to, I love the analogy, and I think I've used it before on this podcast, of the whole emergency kind of thing on the airplane, where they do the whole emergency kind of procedure, and the air hostess will say, in the case of emergency, oxygen masks will drop out of the ceiling above. What is the first thing they say?
You put your mask on first.
You put your own mask on before you start helping other people.
Yeah.
And
that's bull. She's listened to the last body that you
I have not. I've travelled on a plane.
yeah, it's pretty obvious if you travel on a plane.
Well, I'm one of those dudes that put my headphones on.
Yeah.
And I asked them for the instruction manual. Can we go through the instructions again?
But like that is the key thing. The key thing is to always go like put your own one first, because from that are you in a position then to help someone else.
That's right.
You have the capacity, which is what we were talking about, to help someone else.
Yeah.
Because your understanding becomes greater.
Yeah.
Your kindness becomes greater.
But there's another layer to that too, in that if you don't have the capacity, there's a reason why.
Okay.
So like what you're describing is being mindful and self-aware. And it's a skill. It's hard. And you've got to be really quite brutally honest with yourself about why you acted a certain way or why you find it difficult to do something for someone else or accept things. But once you have that skill and have the awareness of what you can generally have the capacity for, if you didn't have it one day for a reason, it's not about going, oh, like there's something wrong with me because I wasn't able to do it that day. It's about going, okay, well, what happened to me, or what am I going through that meant that I didn't have the capacity that day? And sometimes that can be really hard to find out on its own, but then it's going, okay, well, you know, that sucked, but how am I going to deal with that? And am I going to try and do better next time?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it always, I think every situation we go through, there's a learning curve in it, hey?
Yeah.
And it's like you say, when you can sit back and go, what can I learn from the situation?
Yeah.
I can either learn what caused it, or I can learn how to not do it again.
Yeah. Or how can I manage myself so that I'm in a better position to cope with that?
Yeah.
Next time.
Next time it happens. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You got to have kindness. Like it's not like a simple, I can do that, I'm going to do it. It takes work.
yeah. And that's the thing. In order for us to get through life nowadays, I think people think that we live in a very self-gratification kind of thing where it's instant gratification. Sorry, it's probably the word I'm looking for. It's instant gratification. So these kind of things are not necessarily instant. And so people tend to shy away from doing it because they're like, the dopamine hit's not going to happen straight away. It might happen over a long period of time, and you might look back and go 5 years from now and be like, holy crap, I've like done really well to get to where I'm at. Like that's the dopamine hit that you go, I feel good about myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like gym. You go to gym, you're not going to lift 100 kgs. You're not going to bench press 100 kgs the first time you go to gym.
Yeah.
Like I don't care who you are. I'm sorry.
It takes time. Yeah.
If you've never been to the gym, you're not going to go there and bench press 100.
Yeah.
You might start with 10.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more you grow, and by soon enough you'll be at 100 kgs.
Yeah.
It's consistently developing these patterns, like you say, to grow the capacity and be like, in this, I recognize now I have more and more capacity and I'm getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah. And that's where therapy it is like the gym.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is like the gym. It sucks at the start. It is hard.
Yeah.
People come in and I'm like, it's actually hard work. You just can't come and talk to me, and I don't fix a person's problems. I help them fix their own problems.
Yeah.
And so people come in and they're like, oh, you know, I've been seeing you for 3-4 sessions. Why aren't I fixed yet? And well, it's not about fixing you. It's about giving you strategies and skills and working on yourself. So it is like a muscle. You start, you feel like you might suck at it, but the more you come, the more you engage in therapy, or the more you do things for yourself, even if that's like going and listening to
Leave a Light on podcast.
Leave a Light on podcast.
There you go.
That's
Give
a
us a
great
plug.
lesson.
Or
Yeah.
having a meditation. Like people with ADHD in particular struggle with certain types of meditation because they're like, clear your mind. And, you know, you'd never ask someone with ADHD to do that. You'd be like, okay, well, let's do a meditation where you're actually using your brain to do things, maybe like a tense and relax. So you're like tensing up, relax.
Yeah.
You'll do it the first couple of times and you'll be like, oh, like I was really bad at that and I got distracted and do this. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's any skill in life, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to work at it. It's not just going to automatically pop into your head and you're going to be like, oh, I'm great at this.
Yeah.
What Mel's saying is that Rome wasn't built in a day, people. Rome was not built in a day. It takes time. Things take time.
Everything takes time.
Yeah, your internal empire is going to take a little while.
Exactly. No, that's good. Yeah. So we should all be working on ourselves to
always.
Yeah, 100%. That's good.
Okay, so let's just say I'm going to use an example here.
Yeah.
My friend Chev comes in.
Oh.
He doesn't know that he has ADHD, right?
Yeah.
Me being maybe a little bit more educated in the fact that I know the symptoms, the signs to look out for, I see signs that I'm concerned about. And I know that he is struggling with some things. How would I, as the friend, go about having a conversation with Chev to be like, hey, bud, I think there's a potential here for you to have this. You should maybe go get assessed in order for you to have this checked up. Maybe it's going to help you. What would your advice be to someone who maybe is in that situation?
Yeah. So I just want to start, if you don't mind,
of course,
with me just giving a little bit of advice around like the whole diagnostic process, because it's fine to see symptoms in someone, but you don't know what you're looking at.
Yes.
And I don't mean that from like, I'm a psychologist, I know everything. It's more we see symptoms in people and we immediately attribute them to the thing that comes up in our mind first. So
it's from our own perspective.
From our own perspective and our own experiences. It could even be with like our own, like I've been diagnosed, you have symptoms like me, therefore you have ADHD. And that's not necessarily true. And the struggle with social media at the moment is ADHD it's right there. It's in front of everyone. And I would say it's one of the biggest things, that and autism are the two biggest things that are filtering through social media at the moment. And so people are looking at it and going, oh, I have that, I have that, I have that, I have that. Therefore, I have ADHD. And the role of us as clinicians is to go, okay, you've come to me, you've told me you think you have ADHD. Now, what is every other thing that it could be before I can diagnose you with ADHD? And depression, like I said, it looks like ADHD. We've got no motivation to do things. We want to do things, but we can't. Our anxiety, we're restless, where our mind is going. We feel like we're on the go all of the time. Mental health can look a lot like ADHD. And bipolar disorder can look a lot like ADHD. There are so many things, and this is just adults. Like children is a whole nother layer of complexity. But in adults, you can see someone and think that they might have ADHD, but they could have something else. And if you're coming up to a friend and saying, hey, I think you've got this, and then they come and see a therapist, and ADHD, like a lot of people are like, oh, like I can take a pill and I'm better. I'm using quotations right now, but it doesn't fix anything. It just provides you with a little bit more help. But then they come in and I'm like, no, you don't have ADHD. You have this or this or this. And then it's like, like I've just spent the last couple of months telling myself that I have this other thing and now I don't have that and now I've got to learn to accept something else. So if you notice that someone has symptoms of whatever it is, it might be kinder to say, hey, like I've noticed you struggle with this a lot. Have you ever thought about what that might be?
Sorry.
My goodness me, you are shocking.
Sorry.
So it's kind of interesting what you're saying there. What you're saying is rather than put a label on it, is to say, I've noticed and point out the symptoms that you've noticed.
Yeah.
And say, have you thought of maybe going and get assessed to find out what those symptoms are?
Yeah.
So rather than saying, I've noticed you've had X, Y, and Z, and I think therefore you have ADHD.
Yeah.
Maybe you should go see someone. Just go, I've noticed you have X, Y, and Z, and maybe you should go and see someone.
Yeah. But you kind of got to it's got to be someone you're comfortable with. You know, you don't want someone then going, oh yeah,
just some
I
random
knew
down the
about
street.
that and other people are now noticing it. So it's got to be done, like if you are noticing someone struggling, you should say something, but make sure you're doing it in a way that's open, non-confronting, and really isn't judgmental. And you can preface it with that. Like, hey, like there's no judgment. I've struggled with this in the past too, or I've got friends who struggle with this, but I've noticed this. You know, have you ever thought about what might be causing it, or are you okay? And the person might be like, yeah, you know, I've got ADHD, or I'm struggling with something right now, but I'm working through it, because we don't know. But, you know, you could be noticing something in someone and it could be part of something much bigger.
I also feel like now in this particular day and age, what happens is people tend to label things to a situation that suits them.
Yeah.
For instance, I'll use me as an example. I will often go, I'm very OCD because I like things in a certain place. My cupboard's very neat. It's color-coded. If I open a carton of eggs, my wife knows this. If I open a carton of eggs and they aren't all where they're supposed to be, if my wife goes and takes one from here and one from here and one from here and it completely throws me. But in saying that, I know that OCD is actually a real thing, and there's a lot of, what's the word it's a lot more severe than what I label as OCD. So I might have tendencies of an OCD person, but I think I need to be very mindful of the fact that if I label myself as OCD, it can paint a real picture of what it kind of negates the importance of people who actually are struggling with it.
Yeah. So I guess that's more like language-based. You know, OCD is an extreme form of anxiety. So generally when people are enacting these compulsions, it's so that something bad doesn't happen, and it's real or it's imagined. It can be real or it can be imagined.
Like people struggle with real crippling anxiety, like you say. Like
They do.
Yeah.
people can't like leave the house unless they've checked the lights 3 times or they've done.
Just about to say that, Shay. I know that I actually read something, and there was a lady in America a few years ago that she had a doctor's appointment in the morning, and she got up like early hours of the morning, made a bed, did everything. But by the time she did all that, she had to go back through it, like what you said, change it, like turn the lights off to make sure they're turned off 3 times. She had to go back to the start and do everything again.
Yeah.
Make sure the dishwasher was packed, mate. So, yeah, it is extremely – I was reading that, about an American lady, and she was like literally bound to the house because she'd go back and do it all again.
Yeah. And I think like there really is something to be said about using terms where people can really be affected by the language that we use. Like one I hear a lot is triggered, like that triggered me. And, that is quite a clinical term that people use very casually these days. And I think it really does take away from people who really don't have much control over what they're triggered by. And it kind of brings everything down so that when someone says, like that really triggered me, when we see the word triggered throughout social media, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, lots of people get triggered, and it kind of takes away from that person's experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you may be OCD, and without getting too clinical on you, you may not have obsessive compulsive disorder.
And that's the same as compulsive.
Yeah, so like if it's just to use like a different example, everyone has anxiety. Literally everyone. If we didn't have anxiety, we would be dead because it tells us when there's danger and when we need to be careful. So everyone has it, but not everyone has an anxiety disorder. And I use the word disorder as a clinical term. I don't think anyone is disordered. It's just how it's written in our diagnostic manual. So the when it becomes clinical is when the anxiety stops you from doing things and affects your functioning, when it's so bad that you're not going to go to that party because you're scared of being judged. You're not going to take the promotion because you feel like you can't talk in front of people. When it stops you from doing something, that's when your anxiety is at a clinical level and you need therapy. But not everyone needs therapy for anxiety.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great way to put it. In fact, that is a brilliant way.
you got the clap.
Yeah, you got a clap. So that is actually, a really, really beautiful way to put that is like, and that's what I think I was trying to get at when I was saying like, when we use those kind of terms, we take away from the importance of people that are genuinely struggling in those particular fields. And when I say genuinely struggling, like I might have an anxious moment, but like you say, I might not have anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And if I continue to say, oh, I'm such an anxious person and I have an anxiety disorder, what happens is when people are really struggling with that and they look at me and they go, but you're so normal. What's wrong with me? There's got to be something more wrong with me.
Yeah.
So it like kind of like devalues in a way.
Invalidates.
Is probably a great.
Experience.
And that's how I
Yeah.
feel. I look at you and I go, what's wrong with you? Do you know, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No.
We'll have a chat later.
Thanks.
No, that's awesome.
Okay, let's kind of wrap this up in a nice little bow for today because I think we've
Covered a fair bit.
covered quite a fair bit of ground.
Yeah.
Advice on what would you kind of give advice to anyone out there who is struggling, who has been diagnosed with ADHD by a clinician, like you say,
Yeah.
and is struggling in this industry? What are some ways that you would suggest managing this?
I mean, it's different for every person. Research does show, medication is really effective. I encourage anyone to speak to a psychiatrist if they haven't already. But as far as the person goes, really working on acceptance, I think, is a huge one for people with ADHD. There are so many great things that can come from a diagnosis. And I don't mean that in like, oh, amazing, like you're different. I don't want people to feel like I'm just saying, oh, all positive, because it's a struggle. It's hard. But learning to accept yourself for who you are, accept that you're not going to be the same as the next person, and kind of using that to your advantage. Like, yeah, I'm different. I'm a bit more impulsive. I struggle to sleep at night. But hey, like these are all the great things that I can do. Maybe you speak out of turn, but your friends will accept you anyway.
Do you accept me, Shane?
The people
Yeah, you're here still, aren't you? Of course, yeah.
Sorry.
just no, don't be at all. But like really just that acceptance is probably the biggest thing, because the shame, the negativity, the poor self-image that I see with people who struggle with these symptoms, that's the biggest thing. And, you're going to be, more emotional than people of the same gender and age as you. You're going to interpret things differently. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
explained that well.
Yeah, you did. You did
all right,
great.
that's good.
I think it's so important in today's day and age to, and I think there's a big push in it for like that self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Kind of just being okay with who you are, being kind to yourself in the situation and being understanding, and knowing that there's people out there that will accept you for who you are.
Yeah. And at the start, that is going to be hard. But once you accept it, the confidence that comes thereafter, that's going to help you through the rest of your life.
It's the baby steps in the journey to kind of get better. Yeah.
You've got to crawl before you walk.
That's it. And I think that's generally what we're trying to create with obviously this podcast, is a community out there that is accepting, that is saying, well, we know that we have our struggles and we have our moments of weakness and things like that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what being human is about.
Yeah.
Exactly
And
right.
how can I, feed off people around me in similar situations that are taking their baby steps, and how can I help them? How can they help me? And creating this space where we're saying, we're just wanting to live life to the best ability that we can do.
Yeah.
With whatever struggle we have, whatever that mental struggle or physical struggle, whatever it is, because everyone has struggles.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, being in my line of work, it's really true that you don't know what someone is going through. I've spoken to people who have walked into my room and I've thought, this person seems like they've got it all figured out. And then you speak to them over a couple of sessions and you go, oh, I see. Like things are really hard for this person. And you could have the most confident person in the entire world and think that there's nothing wrong with them and they've got something going on. So if you can work on yourself, you can learn to love and accept yourself, as cliche as that sounds, you will only help other people do the same thing because you will approach them with the kindness that you have learnt to give yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's awesome. So like me and Shane, like where we work, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people out there that do go through struggles, and exactly what you said, that me and Shane thought to ourselves, you'd never think in a million years, because you are 100% right. They walk with confidence and stuff like that, and you go, well, okay, he's got some dramas, some struggles that he's facing. So it's it's very, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and you got to think too, like I've been out in mining before, and sitting in a truck for 12 and a half hours with mental health could be a really lonely space.
oh yeah.
It's probably the worst place you can be when you're struggling, huh?
Yeah, wow.
Locked up with your own thoughts.
Yeah, that drives you insane.
Literally driving you insane.
like-
Exactly. Pardon the pun.
If you don't like yourself, it's a hard place to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mel, thank you so much.
That's
obviously,
awesome.
for
Thanks
sharing the incredible knowledge that you have shared with us. I know we kind of had a broad topic of ADHD, which I think we kind of jumped on and shared quite a lot on, but I think there was a lot of other things, and that's why I say, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows where we're going to go next? So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing that. I know Mindful Moments is going to stick around for a long
I
time.
hope so.
So
Good.
In fact, I reckon we close with the little jingle again.
Oh yeah, if you want to, go for it.
Just one more time, Mel, just because I think it's so cool. Just
Yeah,
for
I
you.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
There we go. This is good.
First little jingle ever made.
Time to align, let your mind be free. Ooh, yeah. It's Mindful Moments with Mel, come groove with me. She's a psychologist, got the knowledge deep. Breathe in, breathe out, let your worries take a leap. Mindful Moments, ooh yeah, with Mel. Feeling so good, got a story to tell. Gonna guide your mind, help your soul as well. Mindful Moments with Mel, in the groove we dwell.
Gotta love that jingle, Mel.
That's
Thank you so
awesome.
much.
No, I really appreciate
Thanks
it,
for
Mel.
having
Thank you
me.
for your time.
Thank you so much for
And,
joining us. And we look forward to having you on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't wait.
Just quickly before we dive apart, do you want to give Telethrive a bit of a plug?
Yeah, let's hear about Telethrive.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
I
sure.
believe there's a congratulations in order.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Just quickly
Yeah.
before we wrap up.
Yeah, so we won the Hunter Business Award for Outstanding New Business,
Awesome.
and we're off to the New South Wales Business Awards. But
Well,
yeah,
from
I
me and
think-
Shane, congratulations.
yeah, thank you so much.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
Thank
let's
you.
go New South Wales.
So, yeah.
and then Australia.
Well, hopefully.
Ooh.
That'd be awesome.
I'm not sure if it I didn't even know it went from Lake Macquarie to Hunter to
Yeah.
New South Wales. So we'll see how we go. But I think it's really nice. We are
Yep.
really trying to break down barriers to accessing services.
Yeah, cool.
So it's really, really nice. I've got such a passionate and amazing team.
Well,
So,
shout out to the Telethrive
Yeah.
team.
Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to Mel and the team at Telethrive.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Where can we find you?
Yeah. How do people get hold of you if they want to come see you? If they want advice?
So we do have a website.
Yep.
Which I'll send the details. We have clinics in Singleton, Warners Bay and Maitland. We're also available nationwide online. We have online services. We do diagnosis and assessment, and we also provide ongoing services as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's great. For our listeners, anyone who's listening to this, Mel's website details will be in the description for this podcast. So have a look there. Click on it. If you want to get hold of her, all her details will be on there. So, Mel, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate
awesome.
it.
I really appreciate the time.
Congratulations again on your
you.
reward. That's great. We look forward to hearing the next time on the Great News.
Have a go.
100%. Hopefully we can keep this going.
Yeah, definitely. So I can't wait to have you on again for Mindful Moments with Mel.
Yes, thank you. I can't wait to be back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going.
You going?
I've had enough.
Okay, good. I've had enough of you as well.
That's awesome. So check out our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Shane's not impressed.
No, that bloody TikTok. I don't do any
TikTok.
dancing. You do the dancing, so it's fine.
No, but check out our socials. Let us know how we're going. Give us a review. And check us out on Spotify, podcast.
Whatever you're listening on.
Yeah, whatever platforms you're listening on.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. If you want to listen to us on
YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, from me,
check us
thank
out.
you very much, Chev.
Too easy.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Have a good one.
And from us, obviously, at Leave a Light On podcast, have a good one. And don't forget,
let's leave a light on.
thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. We hope you managed to gain some insight from today's episode. Jump onto our socials and reach out. And until next time, wherever you are, let's leave a light on.